Alright, welcome to the daily space weather. No screwing around, we got over 20 tabs open here. Also, put together a custom animation for you here, folks, because we've got a plasma filament right in the Earth-facing region erupting out of that active region. That's why we put together this animation. Zoom in a little closer on that. This is going on right now, so it's something to look at throughout the day. And there is some flaring associated with this. We'll get into it. Here's a view of that same prominence at 94 angstroms. See it coming out of that active region there. There had been a plasma filament sitting across that for days. And now we'll be interested in looking at it throughout the day today to see what it's doing. Here's another great view in 131 angstroms. It looks to me like the filament lands back on the sun, but again, we got to watch this for a few hours today to try to figure out what's going on with it. Here are the magnetic lines. You can see all the magnetic complexity associated with that active region, and you can still kind of see the coronal hole over here as it moves into a setting location. And since we're doing multiple views today, let's look at 193 angstroms also. Probably won't see much evidence of it there, just a little hint of that filament eruption. Moving on to the real-time solar wind. So nothing too crazy going on in the BTBZ there. We see another, just a fleeting connection with the coronal hole associated with this phi angle. Just a moment where it was shifting around, where it was at around 180 degrees for a tiny period. Solar wind speed still slightly ramped up to 9.94 protons per cubic centimeter. Wait, yeah, solar wind density, 9.94 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed still not elevating, still at 309 kilometers per second. We are expecting a ramping up of that throughout the day today, so look for an increase in the solar wind speed. Look at some other data here, spaceweathernews.com. We see some X-ray flares. Yep, we're going to look at them on the GOES X-ray imager. And yeah, a little B-class flare happened associated with that filamentary eruption that we looked at earlier. See, the magnetometer is looking pretty smooth, and we're not expecting any big perturbations in this. Even with the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet, it looks pretty relaxed out there. Also, the KP index back down to 0. So human health cosmic ray alert is in effect. Electron flux is looking pretty smooth actually right now. No charging hazards. F2 layer is looking pretty discharged over South America, otherwise looking pretty normal. And the aurora forecasts look a little on the weak side. Now let's look at the GONG2 top view ecliptic plane field plot. And I try to talk too fast sometimes, folks, I apologize. Keep in mind the data is an hour and 35 minutes old. The reason I say the crossing of the heliospheric current sheet will not show any big perturbations is because, first of all, the void between the fields is very small. Second of all, you see these bunched up fields. Well, we've got more bunched up fields over here. So we'll see a little perturbation in the magnetometer throughout the day today, a tiny little jump up, and then it'll just go back into a smooth range again, assuming nothing suddenly changes, and it doesn't look like it will. So you can verify my hypothesis by watching the GOES magnetometer today. And this image also, the GONG2, we will leave links. Next we'll look at the GOES X-ray imager, located at the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. You'll see a small flare come out of that active region. It won't be too exciting. And it is most assuredly the same time as the plasma filament came out. We'll let that play through again, just so you see how the X-rays are affected by the filament or how it's all related. Let's just say that. And here comes the flare. And there's the flare. You can see some evidence of the filament crossing that boundary there. Now, in looking at the LASCO C3, we don't see any evidence of any ejecta associated with that, but it's very early, so you may want to keep looking at the LASCO C3 and C2 throughout the day. Let's also show you the Enlil prediction. Since we're showing a predicted uptick in the solar wind velocity and a downtick in the solar wind density, you'll see it reflected here. Keep in mind this is a model and a prediction, except for the first 2 days. Give you some idea of what's going on in the plasma environment outside your planet's doorstep. Next, let's look at some geospace magnetosphere movies. First, the velocity. As you see here, it looks like we've got some missing data again here. Let's see. Nope, it's all there. My mistake. So there's 4 hours of data on the velocity plane. Here's the density. Plasma density quite diffuse around the Earth right now, indicated by the white on the equatorial plane. Plasmasphere looking weak also. Very weak. Here's the pressure. And we see a fairly uniform current there. The magnetotail not looking like a huge disparity between the leading edge there. Keep in mind, folks, as field-aligned currents come in, they're like this. The Birkeland current. These split. One current wants to go to one pole, one current wants to go to the other pole. Just a good time to visualize that if you're not aware of how it works. Here we'll look at global geospace magnetic perturbations at the ground level. Now keep in mind, it's very important to understand what you're looking at when you look at data like this, folks. And what we're looking at here is delta B. That means the change in the B field. So when you see that there's not a lot of perturbations going on, it doesn't mean the field is gone. It just simply means that there are not significant changes happening in the field. And there's really not a lot going on with this. It's kind of the same thing we see most days. So let's move on. Going to quakes.globalincidentmap.com. I just want to say we're in a major earthquake drought. If you live in an earthquake-prone zone, please have a disaster plan. And that is areas such as this. And that. And this. If you're in these areas, please have an earthquake plan. We're experiencing a huge drought in magnitude 7 and 6 earthquakes. So be aware of that. I mean, just be aware that it could happen. Even that is better preparation than none at all. Let's do a rundown. Look at the last 12 hours. We see a 4.1 in Turkey. We see a 5.6 in Indonesia, right in the warning zone. We've been seeing quite a few quakes in the Caribbean, so there's one in the British Virgin Islands at 3.6. We don't usually report that, but a lot of quakes in the Caribbean. Alaska 4.1, Tajikistan a 4.6, 4.0 in India, 4.8 in Japan, 4.8 in China. You don't see that much. There's a lot of conjecture about China not reporting earthquakes. I frankly have no idea. I just report on the data that I see, and I try not to flip out about it. Next, we've got 4.6 in Indonesia at depth. So that's It's another blot echo level quake there, people. Now, we got two 4.0 magnitude quakes in Utah. That's an outlier. Let's see where it's located. I don't know anything about the geography of the area. So anybody with insight into that, please put a post up in the comments. Two side-by-side quakes of a 4 magnitude in Utah. Not something you see every day. And that's about it. So earthquake drought, folks. That's a legit earthquake drought. We usually see, don't quote me on this, but a couple of 6 magnitude earthquakes per week. So yeah, earthquake drought, please have a plan. Let's look at volcanoes. At volcanodiscovery.com. Your source for volcano data. Etna still erupting in Sicily. Karimsky producing an 11,000 foot ash plume. Abico back on the list, producing a 17,000 foot ash plume. Check it out. Dacono, 7,000 foot ash plume there. Continuous volcanic emissions. Revenador possibly erupting. Sabancaya, we're not sure. Planchon Petaroa, continuous ash emissions to 15,000 feet. Next, how about planetstoday.com? Sorry, theplanetstoday.com. Great site where you can animate the solar system. We'll give you the value-added service of showing you 1 week in advance. And that is where things will be a week from now. I would note that there is a bit of a 90-degree conjunction thing going on here, perhaps associated with solar minimum, based on some interesting science regarding the way planets affect solar cycles. Not fully invested in that. I haven't absorbed it all yet, but some interesting science, to say the least. Next, let's go to zooniverse.org, one of the largest citizen science sites in the world. Looking at their Galaxy Zoo section, as it falls right in line with the theme of this channel. Set yourself up a login, head to Galaxy Zoo, help us classify the remaining 7 million galaxies, and do it quickly, because there's a lot of people on the planet. We're trying to get galaxies classified. Get yourself published in an astronomy paper, perhaps, by putting your real name in there. Click on Get Started, and classify a galaxy. There you go. So what do we got? It's got features. So let's check that out. Is it an edge on disk? No, it's not an edge on disk. Does it have a bar? It does have a bar. It has a strong bar. Is there a spiral arm pattern? I would have to say no. Is there a bulge? There's a bulge. We'll say moderate. Is it merging or disturbed? There is a minor disturbance, it looks like, near the north portion of it. And any other features? It's slightly irregular in shape. And that's it. There's a galaxy classified. Will you be the citizen astronomer to classify this galaxy? Galaxy Zoo at zooniverse.org. Now, I love waking up in the morning and laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing while still laying in bed doing show prep for the show you're watching now. So, I got to cover this article because it's hilarious and I value humor. So, fake news generating AI deemed too dangerous for public release. Yeah, this isn't The Onion, folks. The nonprofit OpenAI, backed by Elon Musk, developed GPT-2 by letting it read more than 8 million online articles. It uses a new type of neural network called a transformer. Google researchers developed transformers in 2017. That's better at understanding language. Perhaps it's better at understanding language than the person that wrote this article. It envisioned Transformer running tasks like language translation, but the OpenAI team found it was also adept at generating legible text. So basically, this thing understands sentence syntax well enough that if you give it some information, it can plug a bunch of other information in there to make it look like coherent sentences. So here's an article that it generated. I'll read part of it. In a shocking finding, scientists discovered a herd of unicorns living in a remote, previously unexplored valley in the Andes Mountain. Even more surprising to the researchers was the fact that the unicorns spoke perfect English. This is the part the AI wrote. Here's a paragraph. Dr. Jorge Perez, an evolutionary biologist from the University of La Paz, and several companions were exploring the Andes Mountains when they found a valley with no other animals or humans. Perez noticed that the valley had what appeared to be a natural fountain surrounded by 2 peaks of rock and silver snow. I don't know if it would be silver snow that doesn't melt, but if you want to laugh your ass off, read this article. It is hilarious. And yep, they've made an AI that's so good at writing fake news that they've determined it's too dangerous for public release. Now, if that's not awesome, I don't know what is. Let's give you a quick blurb about an article in the journal Nature.com talking about Antarctica. Well, why are we talking about Antarctica? Well, I'll tell you why. Because some German scientists were so worried about global warming that they tried to go there last year to study the effects that global warming is having on melting sea ice for animals living under the ice, various organisms living under the ice. Well, what happened? They didn't make it because there was too much ice. There was too much ice at the melting Antarctica for them to do their science, so they had to turn back, and that's why they're heading back this year. And there you have it. It's the Seastern... No, wait. It's called... Anyway, let's wish them better luck this year. And hopefully their icebreaker won't have to turn around because there's too much ice to break. By the way, disclaimer, we don't think the poles are melting. Here's an article at how good the government is at running national parks. On ScienceAlert.com, somebody left buckets of radioactive uranium ore in a popular Grand Canyon attraction. Well, well done. Well done, government officials. For nearly 2 decades, the buckets were inexplicably brought to the museum. Tourists, employees, and children had passed unnervingly close to a dangerous source of radiation. A top management failure was blamed. How was it discovered? Well, it was discovered because some kid was testing out a Geiger counter, and he noticed that it was going off in some spot. And yeah, so what a great story. Well done. Well done. Exposures were calculated over 1,400 times the NRC's safe level for children and over 140 times the safe level for adults. Allegedly, once the technicians had dumped the ore in a nearby mine, they returned the radioactive buckets back to the museum. In November 2018, they were found and removed by OSHA officials. Smooth move, dudes. Right next to 3 buckets, he explained, children would often stop and listen to museum demonstrations, which means they were sometimes sitting next to a radioactive substance for 30 minutes or more. If you were in the museum collections building between the year 2000 and June 18, 2018, you were, quote, exposed, end quote, to uranium. While the exposure will not necessarily cause dangerous health consequences, he urged worried employees to consider receiving a medical screening. Gee, thanks, man. Super smart. Love it. Thanks, government. You're brilliant. Speaking of stupidity in government, we're going to go to an article from a site that we never look at, the leftist rag, NPR. Because this is the official comedy edition of smAsho's Space Weather. Bernie Sanders launches 2020 presidential campaign, no longer an underdog. Now, we'll just leave links to the article. But we love Bernie. We love Bernie so much. And we're going to tell you why. But before we tell you why, I'd just like to state that I'm not exactly sure what happened here. I could have sworn about a year ago the DNC changed the rules preventing Bernie from running as a Democrat. Because remember, Bernie's not registered as a Democrat. So I'm not sure what's going on with it. I'm pretty sure he can't run because you got to be registered as a Democrat for like 12 months before the primary or something like that. So I don't know what NPR is talking about, but feel free to read the article. It is hilarious. Now, we are a firm believer that Bernie should retire. And we'd like to start a campaign to see if we can get Bernie mummified, like one of his mentors, Vladimir Lenin, perhaps one of his heroes. I gotta say, the guy looks a little waxy, and the suit is probably a little bit musty by now. I meant Lenin's suit, Bernie's suit too, because Bernie looks a little waxy. Let's cover a couple Bernie Sanders quotes. Unfortunately, an institution that was created to serve all Americans has been hijacked by the very bankers it regulates. There's an indication that Bernie doesn't understand what the Federal Reserve is. Otherwise, he wouldn't be surprised that a banking cartel is run by bankers. In other news, Bernie went to the hospital and was outraged that the hospital director was a doctor. Let's look at another custom meme here, complete with another Bernie quote. At the end of the day, you don't necessarily need a choice of 23 underarm spray deodorants or of 18 different pairs of sneakers when children are hungry in this country. I think that kind of reasoning stinks. I don't think Bernie understands economics. Anybody? Let me just read the caption on my own meme. When it comes to underarm spray deodorant, economics, the role of government, socialism, sneakers, and nearly everything else Bernie talks about, we need a lot more than deodorant. That's because Bernie Sanders' ideas stink. These are all original memes, by the way. I will not wait for Congress to act. I will take executive action to accomplish what Congress has failed to build upon. To do and build upon Obama's executive orders. He's talking about immigration here, folks. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders 2020. A campaign knowing less about economics than one flake of your dander. All right, let's get off of comedy now. A phys.org article. Solar tadpole-like jets seen with NASA's IRIS and add new clue to age-old mystery. We'll leave links to the article. Anyway, here's a visualization of it. But for those who watch our channel, I'd like to make note of something. We actually covered this, well, a similar type of thing, 1 week ago. There you go. Anomaly caught despite disappearing, and then we found it again. Check it out, it's right there in the thumbnail. You want to watch the video on it. It appears to be a chunk of plasma. You can see a disturbance around it right here. But we'll leave links to that video also. Next, another article from phys.org. LOFAR radio telescope reveals secrets of solar storms. Now, I'm not sure how revealing it is, but we'll leave links to that article also so you can draw your own conclusions. In any case, there's some great science coming out. This one from the University of Helsinki. The last article was from the Princeton Plasma Laboratory. Great job. Finally, let's just get real reckless here and go to random-eyes.com and just click this blue button. I dare you to do it. Do you dare me to do it? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to press it. It's going to pick a random website, and whatever we get. Okay, this is a good one. This is a good one. So, isitchristmas.com. I assume if it was December 25th, this would say yes or something. But since it's not, it says no. That is some great code. Now let's go back and look at 304 angstroms. See if we see anything new going on with that filament. In fact, let's zoom all the way out. Thanks for watching, everybody. By the way, we did a long-form discussion yesterday with David Devine of Adapt 2030. That was our previous video. We'll leave links to that also in the description. We talked about a variety of different subjects, all kind of interrelated. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, as we'll be doing it all again tomorrow, and possibly even a second time today. Remember, when you're staring at giant plasma filaments flying off the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, keep watching those plasma filaments. But don't drive.